girls, gals, and non-binary pals. So in this video, I tried using a bad drawing app to draw 3 different artworks. This video was kind of a mess, so please stick around to the end and like this video if you like it. Also, please make sure to subscribe. So far, 100% of my viewers are subscribed. So if you're watching this and you're not subscribed, don't be that one person. And on with the video. So I start by trying to show off just kind of how this app works. There's a brush like normal, but it's very pixelated. There's a spray can, fairly normal spray can. There's a paintbrush tool that is just a waste of a tool. There's a blur tool, a pretty garbage select tool. It's got layers, it's got, some basic stuff. It also has a weird feature where you can tap colors and mix them. I'm not gonna be using that, so not really important. So after that, I get started by just trying to draw myself. Now, I want to try and do this in a way that would work with this app. So I did, hold back some features, I guess, and simplify things. But overall, I stuck pretty true to how I normally draw myself. So this is a pretty good comparison to what this app can do compared to what Ibis Paint can do. Now, this app is called Framecast. You can't actually download it anymore because recently it shut down. This is the app I used to use to draw almost everything I made. So looking back on it and using it again to draw is like really weird because it's like, wow, this is what I did? This is what I used? Oh god, that's just sad. Because it has so little features and like a lot of the unique features it does have, or like just not bare minimum features it has, are kind of useless. Like that color mixing thing, the paintbrush, it's useless. Why are these things here? You could have made like any other tool, but instead you made a paintbrush. I don't get it. It feels like such a waste. This app, it's usable. You can make good artwork with it easily. God, I remember before it shut down, obviously you can't find any of it anymore. Like there are some insane artists on here. It was like crazy what kind of art people were making. The apps you use and the materials you have don't hinder your I mean, they can't, but like don't view it as something that's stopping you from being able to draw. You just have to find creative workarounds, and that's what this was all about. Finding, how to use this app, how to push it to its limits, how to really utilize it and make good artwork out of it. I mean, it doesn't matter, none of y'all can use this app anymore, so not like anyone's gonna be using it anytime soon, unless you happen to have it downloaded, in which I feel bad for you. Okay, let's talk about how it felt drawing on this. I've talked about that it's bad and the features are bad and all that, but how did it actually feel to draw? So, like most apps, the first thing I notice is that I can't turn the canvas. Since Ibis Paint, it feels so weird not being able to turn the canvas. It like just feels like I'm trapped. So like a lot of times I had to physically turn my iPad to draw, because I'm so used to being able to. Also, the eyedropper tool was a nightmare because, the same thing happens with Ibis Paint a lot of the time, but it's so hard because a lot of the times it'll detect it as a brush stroke instead of you tapping and holding to select the color. The select tool, it like does this weird thing where it's full screen, so it's so hard to position it because I didn't want to accidentally cut myself off at the top. But you can't see the top because it puts, the menu up there. Also, you can't like put 2 fingers down to undo, which felt weird. But, a lot of those are just minor little things. Also, since the select tool doesn't work the same as Ibis Paint and there's no like magic wand where you can keep drawing, it's like a whole separate thing. You can't draw and have things selected. You can't select and move things unless you're in the select menu. I also went for lineless line art, so I had to do a lot of like making a line and then going back over it later and then going back over it later. Like some of these lines they've been drawn many times. But honestly, sometimes it feels nice to feel like you can be messy with your line art, I guess, and just fix it later. I don't know, it's a nice therapeutic feeling. It's like when coloring, how a lot of the times I'll just be super messy with it because, you know, I can be. I'll fix it later when I put another color on top of it. Also, I had to record my screen, which is another thing that in general is kind of a nuisance. I have to turn off notifications. I can't pause and do other things for too long. I can't space out. I have to make sure I'm drawing. That can be kind of stressful. Making sure I'm focusing on one thing. Not the easiest thing for me to do. Yeah, I'm not very good at like sitting down and focusing on a drawing. And it also means I have to either like sit down and finish this in one recording or do multiple recordings. For this one, I sat down and did it in one recording, but later on, I did like 3 different recordings because what I use to record my screen too is also like, I don't know what's wrong with it, honestly, but a lot of the times bigger files, it'll just like spontaneously decide if it wants to download it or not. Sometimes it'll do it. Like this first drawing, it was like, I don't know what, an hour long, and then I sped it up, but it decided to download it just fine. But like a ton of times it just doesn't download things, and I'll have to go back later and try downloading it again. I don't know, it just spontaneously chooses if it wants to download or not. Don't ask me, I don't know how it works. But, you know, usually when it's a smaller size, it'll download it much easier. So I broke the last one up into like multiple things and it worked better. But that's also, you know, distracting from the drawing process because I have to remember, like, hey, make sure to stop the recording every once in a while and start anew. So, like, every 20 minutes I had to do that. It was much easier to not have to worry about that and just worry about, you know, drawing instead of worrying about everything else. I mean, I did have to worry a bit about recording. Not really that much. I just thought about some things like, oh, I should not, you know, zoom in and out as much, or I should put all the tools away so you can see the drawing better. To be fair though, probably the worst part about having to draw like this, or like having this recording, is the flipping aspect ratio. You see, it's made for phones and stuff, so it, you know, phone size, it's long, not a 16:9 widescreen or whatever it is. The width is smaller than the height, but for videos I need the width to be longer than the height. This video isn't gonna look as nice as other videos because it's just like small screen in the center. Like just looking at the black bars on the side, it hurts me. You can't change the size of the canvas you have either, which kind of sucks. I think if you like start with a photo background, that was the only way to have it be different sizes. I can't even remember if that did it though. I don't know, it's been a while since I've used this app. But overall, I'm like happy with this drawing. It's not like a special drawing, obviously. This was just kind of me testing out like how drawing on this app will go, and you know what kind of stuff I have to change about my drawing process and what I have to do differently in order to accommodate this app. You know, I found out I can't really blur things because this blur tool is like really sensitive to every layer, I think, or something like that. There's a lot of issues with it, but I found out that won't work. just little tests like that to see what tools I can use, how these tools will work, what ways I can use them differently to acquire different effects. And honestly, for a test, this worked out pretty well. I understood, what I could and couldn't do, and I was like, alright, it's time to move on to like a finished illustration. One, to push this app to its limits, really do everything I can with it and see just what it can and can't do. Like one final test. And then it took me like 2 weeks to come up with any ideas of what to draw. You have no idea how long this video took. So I was deciding on what would really like push this and all that, and I was like, okay, what about like a landscape type thing, some sort of background. And so I decided I was going to do an ocean scene with like a sunset. In the end, this one turned out pretty quick, easy, and lazy. I didn't know how to really go too realistic or do too much with this app. So in the end, I kind of call it quits early with, I don't know, I guess like something that could be a wallpaper. Honestly, this was just once again a test, but this time more in like background capabilities and stuff. I mean, at first I wanted it to be a final drawing, but this couldn't be a final drawing. The actual final drawing is much more, final. It actually has substance to it and didn't take like 10 minutes. I tried adding in some waves, but couldn't get them to look right, so in the end I kind of just left it at this. It's, like I said, quite basic, not much going on, and definitely not a final artwork, so didn't leave it like this. But, it could be a nice little phone background or something if I had any kind of phone that was in that aspect ratio. And then comes the final drawing. So finally I came up with an idea of this person looking out over a starry night on a hill. This still tests a lot of things. The ability to make like kind of a galaxy, the character drawing ability, different lighting stuff since it'll be night, just testing out also like background drawing capabilities. It's a really good way to push it to its limits and test out everything it can really do in an actual drawing. So I didn't put too much time into like actually not designing, but like having a cool character. I just drew whatever worked. Though there is something to know when it comes to the process of drawing this character, is one of the issues with the select tool that I totally forgot until I used it again. It's so prone to like when you click like okay and you're like, okay, I'm done moving it, a lot of the times it'll just move it. It's really annoying. Then you have to like undo and go back and move it into the perfect spot again. And God, I totally forgot about that like feature of the select tool and how much I hated it. But yeah, didn't do too much with the character. It's just a character. Don't even get to see their face, it's them from behind. Then the hill was the first thing that like even presented problem, because I don't like putting down this huge flat color of like green that's just there, it looks flat. So I will usually add like gradients to things like this in large blocks of color. So making gradients is nowhere near the same as doing it on Ibis Paint, because Ibis Paint, it's like, alright, select the space so when you use the blur tool it doesn't go, outside of the confines of the drawing, and just take the airbrush, put some on the top, boom, you have a gradient. But there were 2 issues with this. There's no select tool. I mean, like, not the same way that Ibis Paint has a select tool. That's problem number 1. Problem number 2 is, once again, the blur tool has some problems. so it made like the top really transparent, but I made the hill and then I made something under it that was green and just colored it after I made the sky, because that's when I finally noticed that there was a problem with this hill. But then I tried moving on to making a galaxy. Now I should have looked up references because honestly I couldn't remember. I didn't really know how to make it look like a galaxy, especially with like, I don't know, like the hill and everything. Like if it's in space, it's a lot easier to be like, oh yeah, that's a galaxy, that looks like a galaxy. But with everything else, it's like a bit harder to make it come across as a galaxy. So I tried doing some like other colors, because normally what I just do is like some purples and pinks. Tried adding greens, it didn't work. Tried like red, I don't know, man. I tried making it look like a galaxy. It does in the end, kind of. You know, I could see someone looking at and not seeing it as a galaxy, but it looks galaxy adjacent. The starts were pretty easy. All I had to do was edit some of the brush settings, because you can make it like jitter around, and so I just did that at varying levels to make a ton of different stars, and that looks good. Then I add the hill back in and fix it up, and you know, the background's looking fine. So then I cut off and went to like color in everything. I guess I lost that footage or didn't put it in. This is like one of the big things I talked about like in a lot of my videos when I talk about having to screen record, is this exact thing, because it's so hard to keep track of all the footage. So like you just lost all the footage of me coloring and struggling to do shading in this person's hair. I mean, it wasn't really that much, just it kind of sucks. It's fine, this video is long enough anyway. We don't need more footage. So once again, I can't select things, so when I was putting this black overlay, which don't worry, I'm going to turn the opacity down later, I had to like go in and try and make it pixel perfect myself. And oh my god, it's so much harder not having a select tool and being able to draw with a select tool or like a clipping mask or whatever the equivalents are on other things. Like, I didn't realize how much I needed it. Then I erased the outer edge of everything and blurred it out to try and give like, you know, a room lighting. The blur tool, like I've said, not very reliable, but honestly in this case it, you know, I struggled with it in some areas, but it didn't do too bad. It blurred out that room a lot more than I'd like. I'd like it to be a bit closer to the edge, but it's fine. I wasn't being picky, man. It just meant that the smaller things like the hood of the coat, a lot more of it was just, it wasn't as dark as I wanted, and you know, things got weird, but it's fine. It's not that noticeable and I'm not gonna complain about it. It's not the worst thing I had to endure. But near the end of the drawing, it was just like I added the rim lighting and the shadow, and I didn't know like what else to really do, so I just left it off there. Sure, there's more I could do, ways I could make it look better. It's a bit just disappointing. It looks like it's missing something, especially in like the sky. The sky looks so disjointed from the rest of it, but I do like it. You know, it was interesting going back and seeing how I used to draw and how different things have become. And yeah, the app isn't great, but it still means a lot to me. So much of my drawing growth has happened right here on this app. Now, this app does have something else. It is called Framecast. It has animation features. I always just use the drawing things for the most part, but who knows, maybe someday I'll go back and make a part 2 to this video. Anyway, if you liked the video, please make sure to like and subscribe. I post every week on Sundays, so, you know, make sure to check out those videos when they come out. Also, make sure to go ahead and follow all my social media in the description below. I want to do more stuff with my audience later on, so check them out. And I'll see you all next week.